Hello, good afternoon. I'm Sir Jules John L. Palakpak, and I'm going to discuss the modalities of development assistance and educational planning, sector-wide approaches, new aid modalities, implications and challenges for policy making and planning. My dear professor and classmates, Professor Cielo R. Amihan, and to my classmates in educational planning here in Batangas State University Graduate School. I have three objectives for this discussion. First objective is identify the sector-wide approaches, its rationale, and as a negotiated process. Determine the several factors that contributed some developing countries control of their policies through new aid modalities and appreciate the implications and challenges for policymaking and planning by having new aid modalities. So the series of discussion will come true on sector-wide approaches. We have two topics under it, wherein the swap and its rationale. The swap is a negotiated process wherein it has four subtopics: the pre-swap, the swap planning and implementation, the swap management, the donor or the government dialogue. While on the part two, the new aid modalities, implications and challenges for policy making and planning. I have five subtopics: the donor country intrusion into partner country policy making, the new forms of conditionality, the symmetry of power between the donor and partner countries may have worsened, and the asymmetry of responsibilities regarding accountability, and the challenge of linking plans and budgets. In these topics, we will learn the different modalities that challenges the policymakers and planners on the on this century. So first I will discuss the sector-wide approaches, or they have called it SWAP. So SWAP means sector-wide approach, wherein it designed to provide development assistance based on identification of sector priorities. It also attempts to manage and deliver assistance on the basis of policy considerations for the whole sector. While sector means coherent set of activities that can be relevantly distinguished in terms of policies, strategies, and programs according to the NIDA 1998. So sector can be economic, social, and thematic, while SWAP directly linked to the poverty reduction approach. The PRS, or the poverty reduction approach framework, has two parts. The first part is a move towards a partnership approach in which recipient governments are empowered to develop their own priorities, while part two is a shift away from project-based assistance. So the development or the swap is a negotiated process. Why? Because the development assistance in this framework is a unique process between each donor and partner relationship, and there is no ideal template to follow or propose. While there are a number of steps in the process that can be identified according to SIDA Report 2001. So these are the steps. First is the pre-swap. It is important to conduct a feasibility study first to show that the country has an enabling environment in which swap can work. High-level political support for swap. So swap planning and implementation divides into four. First is the sector policy, wherein the coherent policy for sector development. Its existence signals that the capacity to develop sector policy exists, that the government has its ownership, and that the sector policy has been developed after consultation with stakeholders. So after having the sector policy, there is a sector strategy wherein the sector policy document needs to be supported by a strategy document, and this strategy document should be medium term. So we have also the sector development program or the SDP and the medium term expenditure framework, wherein it should be described as a rolling multi-year plan of resources and expenditure developed in consultation with the Ministry of Finance, together with the appropriate procurement arrangements. So the main objective of the medium-term expenditure framework is to link planning to resource allocation by providing longer time horizon, and it can facilitate implementation of longer term priorities. It can have a poverty reduction strategies and sector-wide approaches, each of which take a multi-year perspective and have implications for the budget provisions that will need to be made to the in the medium of to long term. Annual plan and budget planning is the last one. It should be accompanied by an operational annual plan for implementation. So, SWOT planning and implementation should be by these five kinds or subtopics wherein the sector policy, the strategy, the sector development program, the annual plan and budget planning. When you combine all of this, you will have, and also the annual plan and budget execution. So having a swap will give you a good output in planning. So we also have SWOT management, wherein it represents a paradigm shift from a donor to a recipient managed approach. It places a high premium on the recipient country's capacity, and management of the process must be national in scope. There should be ownership of it at the core levels of the relevant ministries. Local structures need to be given authority or modus operandi. So spot management is kind of a country's project. So it needs to be evaluated by its own country, while the donor or the government dialogue must be includes a parallel dialogue and relationship with the lending agencies. So it is needed at all levels. This dialogue goes through a number of steps. First, establish a letter of intent. Second, code of conduct. Third, national consultative forum, including all funding agencies and non-governmental organizations. And four, measures for harmonizing donor procedures. So donor agencies should actively coordinate their actions on the basis of the sector development policy document and bring donor agencies to agree to donor nations approaches. So each of them must be conjived by each other so that the swap will be uh, properly arranged or the. So this video is about a country that applies the swap strategy.
Very, very satisfied that we actually had to take this to the stakeholders. Very satisfied. One is because they have been able to identify those areas that we've actually improved on over time, and the various regulations and policies and laws that we've actually discarded or repealed, or the one that we've watered down. So it helps going forward with building or with the preparation of the schedule of specific commitments on trading services. The experience has been rewarding as well as very important. We've harvested quality outcomes from all of this, and we hope that going forward we are going to continuously, constantly engage with stakeholders, because that way you're actually able to understand stakeholders' thinking, and also bring them close and create that inclusive and inclusive environment, and then ensure that people take ownership of what we are doing with regards to trade and trade negotiations in the Nigerian Office for Trade negotiations. So, because ownership is very important. It's key. Thank you.
All right. So, if my understanding is clear on this,
yes.
You
So we are clear on this. What we are doing first of all is that the schedule of specific commitments on trade in services, the final outcome will be presented at the ECOWAS for harmonization, so that we're able to have a list on trade and services that we'll send to the AFCFTA, that is to AU, for the AFCFTA negotiations. That first of all must be clear. And so the invitation to stakeholders for participation, one is for them to understand what we are doing, and secondly is for them to make contributions toward the schedule, and thirdly for them is to take ownership of the schedule, and fourthly for them is to ensure that whatever that we do here, that this is relevant to stakeholders, this is important to what they do, and that in the end that they're also going to be able to prepare for the final takeoff or the implementation of the AFCFTA itself. It's not just about them contributing, but also getting them ready for what the AFCFTA is about, and making sure that they also engage with the AFCFTA on how to take advantage of the AFCFTA, and also how to protect themselves against unfair or injurious trade practices.
Nigeria? In terms of percentage?
I would say no country can ever be totally prepared. However, we cannot stop engaging with the AFCFTA process, because it's important that Nigeria, that is strategic within Africa, continues to lead on this, continue to engage with this, continue to sit at the table to that we negotiate the rules, disciplines, and procedures with regards to the AFCFTA. We would not want others to negotiate the rules on our behalf. We want to provide that lead. But having said that, on competitiveness, there's still more to be done. On infrastructure, we still need to do more. On the economy, yes, we still need to do more. On security, we still need to do more. But I think the current government, Mr. President, is actually trying with respect to that. As you also know, we've moved 10 places forward in the area of ease of doing business. So we're getting prepared somehow. But a country can never be fully ready to go into a free trade arrangement. But I hope that over time that we would be able to prepare ourselves and take advantage of the array of opportunities that the AFCFTA presents before us. This is key to the prosperity not just of Nigeria but also of the continent. Okay, thank you very much. Yes, in terms of economic growth, the AFCFTA offers 1.2 billion market size, 1.2 billion market size, just so you know that. So we can take advantage of this, and also note that we're about 200 million people in Nigeria, and so we need to take advantage of that 1.2 billion people. And then in terms of investment, it's about 3 trillion, and in terms of spending, it's about 2.5 trillion. So it's really huge, and so we can actually take advantage of this and will be in a position to grow economy over time as we trade more. As you are aware, the intra-Africa trade between 2017 till now has been relatively very low, minimal, compared to other continental intra trade. At the moment, we're trading between 12, 15, 16% amongst ourselves within Africa. So therefore, I think the AFCFTA we hope would boost that, which is the AFCFTA is founded on the principle of boosting intra-Africa trade. So that's what it's all about. And I think Nigeria can take advantage of it, given the population size and the market size, and given the skills that we have in Nigeria, and also given the strategic position that we occupy, not just at the sub-region, but also at the continental level as well. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Okay, before we continue on the new aid modalities, again, the sector-wide approaches focuses on the development assistance based on the identification of sector priorities. In Nigeria, they having this kind of sector-wide approaches in their country, wherein the government provides different budget matters to them, and they also have this kind of support from the local government. Just like in the DepEd or the Department of Education here in the Philippines, we also have donors from the Brigada Escuela that is yearly having implemented on the Department of Education, wherein different donors helps the students, and as long as the different kinds of private institutions help the public sector in having this kind of budgetary matters. Just like today, they gave a support on what will happen on the new normal in our country. They give bond papers, inks for the modular printing modalities that will be used by the Department of Education. Thank you for those donors, and thank you for the support by the government that is given on the public school teachers as well as on the private sector. So I will discuss now the new aid modalities, implications and challenges for policymaking and planning. Going back to the new aid modalities, we have four kinds of modalities. The first is the SWOP or the sector-wide approaches, the budget support that is discussed a while ago by another presenter, the FDI and the Paris Declaration. So how well have these new modalities performed in improving in effectiveness? In responding to this question, it should be noted that in Paris Declaration, it provides a rule-based umbrella framework for aid delivery and management. Other four modalities nested within the broader framework of the Paris Declaration. These are worthy intentions, but according to two recent studies, the experience so far reveals a gap between the interventions and the outcomes. So most apparent on the issue, its intention is to increase partner ownership, to strengthen development partnership, and several factors could have contributed. So the first part of this five divisions of the five factors that have contributed is the donor country intrusion into partner country policy making. So the World Bank determined the presence of a good quality and operational development strategy. The World Bank also improved if the donor country is to be eligible and assistance. The donor countries are the final arbiters for giving approval. So the donor countries must be well suited and can help those countries who in need their help. So we have the new forms of conditionality, wherein its tension is to reduce conditionality to foster greater partner or country ownership. There are 12 indicators should be complied, and it can generate new conditionality packages for disbursement of aid. The OECD's Development Assistance Committee, or the DAC, decide on evaluating the recipient. So not all country can be a donor on the country in need, but the DAC did decide on evaluating the recipient. So developing countries should broadly accept good practices by the donor countries. Good practices include the opening up of national procurement systems to qualified foreign firms. The declaration supports the controversial conditionality of liberalizing public procurement systems, according to Visio 2008, while the developing countries can use national procurement systems as a development tool. So, the developing countries who needed help from the donor country must practice this kind of things so that they will have increase in their practices. So the asymmetry, the third one is the asymmetry of power between the donor and partner countries may have worsened because the Paris Declaration strengthened the voice and role of donors as they are now more coordinated. It increases the asymmetry between the aid recipient country and its donors and creditors who form a single group under the new aid modalities. It is the donors and creditors who have exclusive with little or no developing country voice or vote. The donor and recipient country is inherent in the relationship, while the power imbalances and weak capacity continue to limit developing countries' governments' ability to negotiate with donors and creditors on the conditions of their financing. So the developing countries in here has a minimal power in terms of asymmetry of power between the donor because they are only partner countries and the donor countries has uh, a great power to overpower the developing countries or the partner countries. So it is important to look on these two. So the asymmetry or the fourth one, this asymmetry of responsibilities regarding accountability. So PD does not have mechanisms to hold donors accountable for the quality of their aid developing countries. The focus is on recipients' governments' responsibilities, and it fails to recognize the steps that donors must take to create space for recipient governments to fulfill these responsibilities. Partner countries can make greater efforts to promote anti-aid. Partner nations can take is to give high priority on developing their capacity for policy strategies, implementation, and accountability procedures. So the accountability between the two is also important. So there are challenges of linking plans and budgets. The first challenge is link sector development plans to a medium-term expenditure framework, or the MTEF. It is a device which should facilitate the alignment of the planned budget with sector plans and objectives. So budget ceilings for a given number of years using microeconomic model. Preparing of education sector plan should not within the same medium-term period. So it turns to spreading the resources too thin results to poor implementation. So another major challenge lies that the Ministry of Education be given adequate width and attention when the Ministry of Finance sets the sector budget ceilings. So these are the challenges and implications on the new aid modalities. So the first, again, I will discuss the first challenges. So the donor country intrusion into partner country policymaking. The second one, we will have a new forms of conditionality. The third one, so the asymmetry of power between the donor and partner countries may have worsened. And the fourth one, asymmetry of responsibilities regarding accountability. And the fifth one is the challenge of making plans and budgets. So the Department of Education today has also this kind of new aid modalities in the upcoming new normal. So this new normal will be
Hi everyone, Teacher Dong here and welcome to Literacy Corner. Marahil marami ngayon sa inyo ang naguguluhan pa din at nababahala sa kung ano ang magiging setup ng inyong mga anak pagdating ng pasukan ngayong Agosto. Don't worry dahil sa video na ito ay pag-uusapan natin ang iba't ibang learning delivery modalities na binanggit ng DepEd kamakailan lang. Ang mga iba't ibang learning delivery modalities ay face-to-face learning, distance learning, blended learning, at homeschooling. Sa distance learning ay may tatlong uri, ang modular learning, online learning, at TV or radio-based learning. Unahin natin pag-usapan ang face-to-face learning. Ito ay ang nakagawian ng setup ng inyong anak kung saan si teacher at ang inyong anak ay nagkaklase sa iisang physical na classroom. Ngunit, kamakailan lang ay pinalang sinabi ng Pangulo na walang mangyayaring face-to-face learning ngayong Agosto. Ibig sabihin ay hindi po kailangang pumunta ng inyong anak sa paaralan. Pag-usapan naman natin ang distance learning. Ang unang uri nito ay ang modular learning. Sa modular learning ay bibigyan po ang inyong anak ng module. Ang module ay isang self-learning material. Ibig sabihin ay nakadesign ito na kayang magawa ng inyong anak nang siya lang sa sarili niyang oras. Kung meron po kayong computer o tablet, pwedeng ang module na ibibigay sa inyong anak ay electronic ang format. Kapag naman wala kayong computer o tablet, ay ang printed na module ang ibibigay sa inyong anak. Makipag-ugnayan lang sa paaralan ng inyong anak kung paano makukuha ang mga modules na ito. Ang sunod naman ay ang online learning. Ang online learning ay kailangan ang computer o tablet o smartphone at internet. May dalawa itong uri, ang synchronous online learning at asynchronous online learning. Sa synchronous online learning, ay sabay na magla-live call ang inyong anak at ang teacher gamit ang computer o tablet o smartphone. Para itong normal na klase pero sa online nga lang. Sa asynchronous online learning naman ay hindi na kailangan na sabay mag-online at mag-live call sa teacher at ang iyong anak. Gagamitin lamang ang computer at internet para makakommunicate sa isa't isa si teacher at ang inyong anak para mabigay at makuha ang mga learning materials. Ang TV o radio-based learning naman ay mag-aaral ang mga bata sa pamamagitan ng TV at radio. Dito ay kailangan na nakagabay kayong mga magulang. Kung sa tingin ninyo ay hindi nyo kaya, mas mainam na makipag-ugnayan sa paaralan ng inyong anak para kayo ay maturuan kung paano makatulong sa pagkatuto ng inyong anak. Ang susunod naman ay ang blended learning. Ito ay pinaghalong distance learning at face-to-face learning. Ngunit, dahil hindi na pwede ang face-to-face learning, ang blended learning ay distance learning na lang din. At ang panghuli ay ang homeschooling. Dito ay ikaw mismo na magulang ang magtuturo sa inyong anak gamit ang mga learning materials na angkop sa inyong anak. Ngunit, kailangan muna na kayo ay magkaroon ng nararapat na pagsasanay bago makapagturo. Makipag-ugnayan muna sa paaralan kung ikaw ba ay kwalipikado na mag-homeschooling. Ngayong alam nyo na ang different modalities, patuloy lang na makipag-ugnayan sa paaralan ng inyong anak upang inyong malaman ang nararapat na paraan para hindi matigil ang pag-aaral ng inyong mga anak habang wala pang vaccine para sa COVID-19.
So that video indicates the new aid modality or the learning modality that will be used by the Department of Education this coming school year 2020-2021. So maybe there will be any challenges, there are implications, or there are different problems that will rise. But as we says a while ago, each kind of modalities or the help from the donors will give this kind of modality a very good result on the education in the Philippine sector. So I will end my discussion by this quotation. If you are planning for a year, sow rice. If you are planning for a decade, plant trees. If you're planning for a lifetime, educate people. So if we plan right, we plan properly on our students, this new normal, we will have a good product according to Chinese proverbs. So again, thank you for listening. Good day and God bless.